Hello and welcome to the Product Biz Podcast. My name is Monica and I am so excited to be here sharing with you the next episode. Oh my gosh, it's been a while since I've been recording, since I've been chatting with you, and I am just super excited for today's topic. I have officially launched my Etsy Algorithm Secrets course, and from working with the amazing new members in Etsy Algorithm Secrets, I'm getting so much good information, what these people are really working through, what these small business owners are working through, and that really has led to today's episode all about 3 things that are holding back your success, your sales, your consistent sales on Etsy, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I'm kind of jumping on here, rolling it a little bit hot. Usually I prepare a little bit before an episode, so this is going to be me kind of winging it. I just feel super inspired. And also I heard this awesome quote from one of my own coaches that version done is better than version none. So I am here putting a podcast out. I haven't in a while. I want to commit to putting one podcast out per week upcoming over the next couple of months. So this is me sharing my goal with you. This is me being imperfect and just putting something out there because version done is better than version none. And I'm so excited that you are here with me on episode 12 of the Product Biz Podcast. Are you ready to go behind the scenes and learn what it really takes to create consistent sales each and every month with your handmade small business? Join me, Monica Little, self-taught multiple 6-figure small business owner and your product business coach, as I give you the insight and inspiration on how to better run your business and increase your sales in ways that you may not have even been aware of, so that your business can truly become what you knew it could be back when you first started. Learn how to let go of perfection, overcome the fear of failure that is holding you back, and finally start taking action so that you walk away feeling like you've cracked the code on how to run a successful small business. You're listening to the Product Biz Podcast. Before we jump in, I want to mention the listener of the week, which is Allison. Allison left a review saying, "So good. Monica is so on point with all of the inner dialogues I have with myself as a small business owner. Such great advice for working through your slumps and building your business to where you want it to be." Thank you so much, Allison, for the review. I appreciate it. DM me on Instagram and I will send you a fun little freebie in the mail for taking your time to leave me an awesome review. And if you're listening, and if you leave me a 5-star review on Apple as well, and if I share your review on an upcoming episode, you have a chance to win an awesome prize. I have these gold glittery keychains that say small business owner. I have some pink Product Biz Academy pens. I have some really fun stickers. So some really great swag if you want to go and leave me a 5-star review as well. You can easily find instructions on how to leave a review by going to ratethispodcast.com/the Product Biz Podcast. But Allison, I just want to say thank you so much for leaving that review. That's my goal with this podcast, is to talk you through the slumps so you get over those slumps, so you get back to building your business, so you get back to believing in yourself about your business, so you're excited, so you're ready, so you are doing things outside of your comfort zone, because so often, including myself, so many of the small business owners that I work with, we get stuck in this slump. And we're in this slump for a couple weeks, and it feels like nothing's working out, and it feels like we don't know what to do next, and it feels like we're going to be here in this slump forever. But I truly, truly hope that this podcast gives you a little bit of relief, a little bit of a new perspective, a little bit of a mindset change to help you get over that slump and meet yourself on the other side. So thank you so much, Allison, for that review. So before we dive in, a little bit more context on how this episode really came about. So I mentioned I launched Etsy Algorithm Secrets, and I have 33 amazing small business owners in the program with me that I am just so excited about. And as we've been starting to work together, I start to notice trends and similarities in what people are really struggling with. And it's so interesting to see, because the biggest thing that comes up is just that we are getting in our own way. That's it entirely. And this is across the members in my programs. This is across other small business owners that I just chat with in the DMs, people who reach out to me. This is something that I see over and over and over again. And if you've ever done Myers-Briggs, if you know what that is, I'm an INTJ, and basically an INTJ, what that is, some people call it like the scientist, that they love to see why things happen the way they do and then explain them. And that's exactly what I've been starting to piece together, which led to this episode. But the main theme across the 3 reasons why you're not getting the progress, success, sales that you want on Etsy, the main theme across all 3 of them is that we are getting in our own way. And it's both a blessing and a curse because, number 1, if it's us getting in our own way, that's a blessing because we can overcome it. We can get past that. We can get on the other side. It's not something that we are missing. It's not something that we don't have. It's not something that we can't do. If we're just getting in our own way, we just have to acknowledge it and see it and pinpoint it and recognize it. And then we can get on the other side. So that's why it's a blessing, because it's honestly super simple. Doesn't mean it's easy to always do that, but it's simple. Obviously, then it's a curse because you know what? The hardest thing to do is to get out of our own way, right? Like we know these instances when we are just struggling and it can be hard to really separate ourselves from what we're going through to really get to that other side, to even recognize what we're kind of doing to self-sabotage ourselves or to really prevent our own progress. So that is why this episode originated. And what I want to start with before we jump into the 3 reasons is that it's possible. It's so possible for you to have the success that you want on Etsy. And I'm going to give you some really good prompts to start thinking in that way, but this will help you to get over that bridge. These are 3 concepts that not only do they matter on Etsy, but they matter with your business in general. And if you can understand these concepts and embody them and make the changes that I'm mentioning, it's going to be a game changer for your business. The first one that I want to start with, one of the main reasons that you may not be getting sales on Etsy is because you don't believe that Etsy will work. You don't believe that Etsy will get you any sales. And I'm going to be talking about energy and beliefs more and more and more on this podcast. And it's going to get a little bit woo-woo, but I'm really done with just like this filter of me trying to bring things down and make it smaller and make it not as expansive and make it more just common and more normal, right? Like I'm going to really focus on speaking what has helped me, and believing in things is key. If you don't believe that Etsy will work, if you think everyone is trying to undercut you on pricing, if you think it's too saturated and it's never going to work for you, if you think your products are just too niche and no one is searching for your products, if you have any of these beliefs or these stories that are ingrained in your mind, you're not setting yourself up for success. And think about a basketball team. If a basketball team doesn't believe that they will win, they'll show up on the court already defeated before the game even started. But if you see a basketball team that believes in themselves, believes in the hard work that they're putting in at practice, even if they aren't the best team in the league, they will put everything they have on the court and play their best each and every game. So I want to know, what type of energy are you coming in to thinking about Etsy? Are you the basketball team that steps on the court and doesn't believe in themselves, and they throw the ball to the other person on the team and they get a turnover? They just don't believe in themselves. When you see a team like that, you can just feel the energy. I don't know if you've ever played sports growing up. I played sports. I wasn't good at any of them. I played basketball, volleyball, I ran track. Like I was a bench warmer, but whatever. I loved it. It was so much fun. And one of the things that you notice when you play on a team is when you're losing and you go to halftime and you're in the locker room with the coach, there's 2 things that can happen. Number 1, that coach can inspire you and put a fire under your ass and do something that will make you believe that you are capable of winning this game, and you go out there with renewed energy, ready to go, and it's like a different team. And all of a sudden you're getting more points. All of a sudden you're winning the game. And how crazy is that? Just by shifting your energy to believing that you can win, that believing it is possible. Or there's the flip side. What if you're in the locker room and the coach is trying to get everyone riled up and everyone is just out of it? They feel defeated. They don't think that they can win. This team's too good. This team has been practicing so much longer. This team has taller players that are better. This team has faster players that are better. If that team leaves the locker room and gets back on the court, you're going to feel it. They're not going to try. They're not going to be cohesive. They're not going to put their all on it. They're going to be the last ones running down the court. They're not going to be there first going for the rebound. So that in a nutshell, is how energy can affect how you show up for your business. And I want you to be so super conscious of the stories that you're telling yourself. Like extremely conscious, just so conscious. The thoughts that come up in your mind, I want you to actually analyze them and see what's going on, what's being said, what types of stories are going on in your head, and what types of beliefs are being created from these stories. Because when you're saying that something is not possible because of XYZ reason, or it won't work for me, or all this is going wrong, look at your energy. And how is that going to impact how you show up? You're not going to try nearly as hard if you don't even believe that it's possible. I had a coaching call with one of my coaches, Coach Mark, and it's through this business program I'm in through James Wedmore. And Coach Mark said the craziest statistic, which goes into this whole conversation of stories and beliefs. He said that 99.994% of all of our thoughts are subconscious thoughts, programmed from how we grew up, programmed from what we believe to be true. And only 0.006% of our thoughts are conscious. That's insane. So the stories, the beliefs, the program that we have basically controls our mind and controls what we believe, and what you believe is what you see, right? And this is so interesting because how he explained it was that the brain runs on the subconscious for our benefit. It's basically to conserve energy, because otherwise there would be way too much stimuli to process and it would be really, really challenging on the brain. So think of it this way. This is an example that Coach Mark gave. When you see a door, when you're younger, you recognize how to use it. You learn how to use it. There's a handle, there's a big piece of wood or something, it's on hinges, and it opens when you pull the handle. So your brain knows that this is a door. In its simplest way, that's the benefit of our subconscious. We learned what a door was. Now we know. And now every time we see a door, our brain doesn't have to go, what is this thing? How do I use this? What is this for? How do I get through? Our brain just knows, right? It's our subconscious. Like, oh, I see that. That's a door. That's our brain working. And our brain is using less energy because of the subconscious, because we have things that are just programmed in our brain. But in the same way that a door is a door is a door, we start to have these programmed beliefs and stories about our business. Things like people always undercut each other on Etsy. I've tried and it didn't work on Etsy. So now you start to believe these things. And the problem is, we start to assume that it didn't work. We start to generalize that Etsy didn't work, just like how we're generalizing that a door is a door. But when we think, you know what, everyone is selling things so cheap on Etsy, I just won't be able to get any sales because everyone is undercutting me. When you start to have these thoughts, and I want you to pay attention to these thoughts, and then you'll start to catch them. And then I want you to ask yourself, is that really true? Is it 100% true? Is every single seller on Etsy selling things at a lower price than what you offer? Or can you go on Etsy and do a quick search and find one example of where someone actually is charging enough, so you start to see proof of the opposite of what you've programmed yourself to believe? So we have to catch the stories that we tell ourselves, and we have to work to change the story, to change the belief. And if you're saying to yourself right now, yes, but it really won't work for me because of XYZ, say hello to your subconscious programming. Say hello to your brain trying to conserve energy and going back to old stories that are comfortable, that don't use a lot of energy. And while you're at it, give it a try and say hello to a new story. Stop yourself and say, you know what? It is possible. It is possible for me. I can do it. I totally can do it. Instead of looking to see how it's so hard for you, why don't you look to see at all the Etsy sellers that are killing it and take that as proof that it is possible? Obviously, it's possible because people are on there that are successful. So you should use that as positive proof that it is possible instead of these negative beliefs and stories of only what you potentially have experienced, which is maybe the results that you don't want just yet. But there's a positive belief, there's a positive story that it is possible from all these other people that are doing it, that you can do yourself too. So when we start to believe in ourselves, and obviously this is what I talk about a lot in the podcast, but specifically on Etsy, when you start to believe that it's possible, you're going to show up different. You're going to spend more time on it. You're going to be excited about it. You're going to have a positive energy about it. You're going to be like that basketball team that had that halftime meeting with their coach and they're ready to go. They're amped and they know they can do it. And that is what we really need to embody across the board with running our business. And I really, really hope that resonates because that is one of the biggest things. Like I said, I talk about it all the time. Like, how do we build this belief in ourselves? And it takes conscious effort, which is hard because only 0.006% of our brain power is conscious. So we have to work adamantly on it. We have to work on these stories that we tell ourselves. And a great way to do it is to take a journal and just write Etsy is, and just fill in the blank. Let your mind wander, let your hand write, get it all out. See the stories that are coming up. Maybe you're saying Etsy is frustrating, Etsy is hard, Etsy isn't possible for me, everyone else has it easier on Etsy, I can't make any sales with the price that I charge, Etsy isn't fair, Etsy, whatever is going on, write it down, and there you go. Those are your beliefs. Those are your stories. But beliefs are different than the truth, right? Beliefs is just something that we've seen enough that we think it's a truth. But there's an actual truth, which is, you know what? It's possible. It's so possible to be successful on Etsy. And then, if you want to take it one step further, I want you to write a new story. So for every single belief that you wrote about Etsy, Etsy won't work for me, Etsy is too hard, Etsy is too saturated, just humor me for a couple minutes and write a new story. Write the opposite. Write Etsy is possible for me. I can be successful on Etsy. Etsy isn't too saturated for me to make my mark. My prices will work on Etsy. I'm capable of doing this. Write a new story. And say those new stories out loud and just see how it feels. And that should feel so much lighter for you, so much more expansive. It's positive. And if you do feel that lightness, that's a sign. That's a sign that that's the direction that you should go. That's the belief that you should have. That's your body, your subconscious. That's everything saying, yes, this is a story I want to believe. This is a story I want to work with. And the amazing thing is that you have a choice on which story you believe, which story you act upon, which story is underlying how you work, how you show up on a day-to-day basis. So I want to challenge you to choose that new story and pick the new story that's going to be the best benefit for you and just run with it. So that is number one of why you're not getting the sales, the success, the progress that you want on Etsy. Let's jump into number two, which is kind of a continuation on what we were just talking about. The second main reason why so many small business owners struggle with selling on Etsy, with getting in front of more customers, with getting more sales, is because they end up doing the same thing over and over. Or maybe they're doing nothing over and over. And then they wonder why their results haven't changed. One of my favorite quotes, I believe this is an Albert Einstein quote, is, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. So we're talking about subconscious and conscious again, but now we're focusing on problems and being in this state of consciousness or state of thought with your problem. You have to step into a new state of thought. You have to do something different to solve a problem, right? Think about it this way. This is a really great example. Imagine if you're trying to lose weight and every single day you go to the gym and you run 2 miles. Every single day. Every single day. That's it. 2 miles, done and over with. It's a great workout. I don't think I could run 2 miles right now. I'm not a good runner. But at the end of the day, after a couple weeks or a couple months, you might be like, you know what? Like, I'm not seeing the progress that I want. I'm going to the gym every day. I'm running 2 miles every day. How come I don't have a six-pack abs? What's going on? But if you think about it, if, number one, you've reached this new level, right? Maybe you weren't active before. Now you've been running 2 miles for a couple months. You've reached this new level. You're in this new state of consciousness, and now you have a new problem. Well, you have to do something different, right? You're not going to continue to get better and better and better and more in shape unless you start to add things on top of that. Maybe now you take some weights and you do some weightlifting. Maybe now you do the Stairmaster. Maybe now you do a cycle class. You can't solve the problem from the same consciousness that created it. So what are you doing differently? What are you doing next? What are you doing to get out of whatever state or whatever problem you are at right now if you want to keep getting better and better and better? And something that you will hear me say all the time that I heard from my coach, James Wedmore: if nothing changes, then nothing changes. If you aren't seeing the results that you want, but you're not giving SE any attention, or if you're only going in and focusing on keywords and titles and tags every single day, making adjustments here, sure, those things are important, but there's so much more to it. So if nothing changes, then nothing changes. If you keep going to the gym, running 2 miles every single day, but you're going home and eating XYZ for dinner and not really checking what you're eating, McDonald's every day for dinner, well, if nothing changes, right? So this is where getting to the next level. And we can't get to the next level by doing the same things that we're doing now. You reach this level of success because of what you've been doing right now, right? So what are you going to do differently? And I really want to focus on pushing you to think bigger with your business. And I mentioned earlier, I feel like I've really been holding back on this podcast because sometimes I'm thinking, well, you know what? People aren't ready for me to talk about hiring just yet, or some people are struggling, or some people are still new with their business. But if you want to be successful, then I want you to get to that success as fast as possible. I want you to think bigger. I want you to learn from the things that I learned the hard way, so you don't do it the hard way. And I built Plant-Based Beauty the hard way, 100% the hard way. And it was tough. It was really tough. It was stressful. It was 12, 14, 16 hours per day. It was not seeing progress. It was me by myself. It was me without a support network. It was me getting frustrated. It was me doing everything on my own. And it was so challenging. But I want to push you to think bigger with your business because I want you to be successful. And the key here is it's entirely up to you to get your business to that next level. The success that you see in your business or the lack of success that you see in your business is entirely up to you. It's not up to your spouse. It's not up to your family. It's not dependent on your situation, how much work you have, how many other things you have going on, how many kids you have. None of that is going to determine the success or not of your business. The success of your business is up to you 100%. And that is one of the biggest mindset shifts that you can make with your business, is to take radical responsibility for your progress. And this is one of the biggest things that I always lean on. And it's something that really goes back to my childhood. Taking radical responsibility, being super independent, knowing that what happens in my life is dependent on the choices I make, the decisions I make, what I do. Game over. That's it. That has been something that I've really carried with me since childhood. I don't really talk about my background a lot on here, but to put things in a little bit of perspective and a little bit of a context, my parents are from Poland. So they came to the U.S. in their mid-20s, didn't know the language, didn't speak a lick of English. And my dad worked in the automotive industry because there was a lot of that going on in the Detroit area. And my mom honestly cleaned houses for a living. That was what my parents did. My dad recently retired from working in the automotive industry pretty much for his entire life, but he worked in minimum wage jobs, the night shift, basically the entire time. And he just retired. He just turned 66 and retired. And I remember last time I was home visiting my parents, my dad was talking about how Costco is hiring people for $19 an hour. And he was kind of saying like he couldn't believe it and oh my gosh, it's so much money. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, like my dad has been working his whole life and he's probably never made $19 an hour for someone who's probably been working, 40 years, if not more. And I grew up in a very, I wouldn't say unique dynamic, but I grew up in that type of dynamic where my parents didn't have a lot of money. And that was just how things were. I learned from a young age that if I wanted something, I would have to go do it because I knew my parents didn't have a lot of money. And my parents would tell me no all the time. If I wanted something, they would say no. And that was it. We didn't have money. No, sorry, you can't get this. So I knew, okay, if I want something, I can't rely on my parents. I can't rely on my situation. I have to physically do something about it. It's up to me. And it's only up to me. And I mentioned this in another episode, and it's like the silliest example, but I remember the first big purchase, the first big thing that I realized I can make this happen. I need to make this happen. Was my senior year spring break, which we started talking about in junior year. So I got a job when I was 15 and 9 months right off the bat. As soon as you can legally get a job, I got a job working at Subway. I remember I was making $5.95 an hour, which just sounds ridiculous thinking how low minimum wage was back then. But I worked my butt off for a year and a half to make enough money to go on this senior year spring break. And then I went and I was like, wow, look, I was able to make that happen. No matter my parents' circumstances or my circumstances, I did something. I worked really freaking hard at less than $6 an hour to make this happen. But look, I was capable of doing it. And I've kept that with me throughout my entire adult life. I went to college. I went to a great school. I paid for it 100% on my own because my parents didn't have the money. I worked a job throughout my entire college career. The 2 years after college, when I got a full-time job, I worked my butt off to pay off my loans. I paid $100,000 of my own for my college degree. But it's me taking radical responsibility because I knew I wanted to go to a good college and I got accepted, but I knew that I couldn't rely on my parents or my circumstances to pay for it. So I had to do something about it, right? And that's just what radical responsibility is. It's just knowing that, hey, my situation may be difficult, but I can do it. I have the ability. I'm fully capable. It's in my hands. It's up to me and only me to make my life what I want it to be. And then this carries into running your own business because whenever I would be in a sales slump or whenever I wouldn't be super happy with the success of plant-based beauty or whenever I was just not in the momentum that I wanted, I knew it was up to me and only me to make it happen. For me to either learn from someone or for me to try something different or for me to take a bigger risk. But I knew that I had to make that decision and the success of my business was only up to me. Doesn't mean that it's always been easy. It's been really, really hard, but I knew that I had to do something. It was in my power. It was in my hands. It was up to me to figure it out. And I could lean on my excuses for reasons why not to make the progress that I wanted, or I could lean on my risk-taking, my ability, my capability, my inner knowing that if I take responsibility for my results, I will reach success. So when I talk about Etsy, bringing this kind of back full circle and how if you're doing the same things over and over, or maybe you're doing nothing over and over, I want you to make sure that you're taking radical responsibility for your results. I don't want you to say, oh, you know what? I've tried everything on Etsy, but I just have so much more going on in my life right now. I just can't make it happen because there's things you can do, right? You could hire someone to help you to make that progress. You could hire a babysitter to watch the kids so you can make progress. You can change your circumstances. You can find ways. There's creative ways to give ourselves time to work on the things that we want to do. And that's really what it comes out to. So if you haven't seen the results that you want, I just want you to make sure that you're thinking about it from this place of radical responsibility, but also just acknowledging, right? I'm fully capable. It's up to me. I can do it, but let's find a way to make it happen. And let's see what I can do to make it easier on myself. So this is where I want to go into the mistake number 3. which is you may be trying to do every single thing on your own. And that ultimately is one of the main things that will change the trajectory of your Etsy shop, of your business in general, if you think about how you can get more momentum in your business. I was telling my Etsy Algorithm Secrets members this story of me getting coffee with my friend. And obviously, I don't want this episode to be all about me, so I hope you're getting the stories and reasons why I'm sharing these stories with you. But I got coffee with a friend a couple weeks ago, and she was like, you know what, Monica, every time I see you on Instagram, you're launching a new project, you're doing this, you got your hands here, you got your hands there, you're doing all these different things, and I just feel like I can't keep up. Like, how do you do all of this? How are you making so much progress? And I really started to think about it, especially now as I compare how I run Plant-Based Beauty and Product-Based Academy now compared to how I used to, right? I told you before, Plant-Based Beauty, I was doing everything on my own. And now I think about how am I making so much more progress, so much faster where I am right now. And I came up with this as the only way that I could think of how to explain it. In terms of making progress, there's a couple things that come into play. There's the amount of time that you spend, the amount of time that you have dedicated to your Etsy shop or your business. But what's more important than time is velocity. And velocity, how I'm going to explain this, I don't know the actual physics definition of velocity, so this may be completely wrong. Like I said, I'm totally winging this. Velocity, how I'm going to explain it in the context of business, is the power in which you move. So if you think about speed, sure, you can go faster, but when I think of velocity, I think of not one person pushing a boulder up a hill, but 10 people pushing a boulder up a hill. Then you get velocity, then you get power, then you get momentum, and then you actually make progress. Versus if you have one person trying to push that boulder up a hill, even if they roll up to that boulder at 100 miles per hour speed, they're not going to be able to have that power, that velocity to actually move it. So when I think about making progress, it's about velocity. And velocity is getting people to help you. And this can mean so many different things, and I was kind of hinting to some earlier. For example, if you have kids and that is something where it's taking a lot of your time to own a business and raise your children, which is 100% valid. 100% valid. I don't have kids, so I don't know exactly what it entails, but I can imagine. But if it's only you able to dedicate 10 hours per week to your business and all you have is that speed, that's it. Because you're spending so much time with other responsibilities, you can increase your velocity and your power and your momentum by getting someone to help. But you can get someone to help in multiple different ways. You can get someone to help that will help babysit the kids once a week, because then you have that full day to focus on your business. And then when you're with your kids the rest of the week, how much more present are you going to be, knowing that you're not trying to multitask and get things done and also be with your children by getting someone to help. Or similarly, you could hire someone to help you to get administrative things done, to create your Etsy listings, to do specific things for you. You can hire a photographer so you're not taking your own photos. This is where we talk about velocity and power and getting people to support you and help you. And in a similar way, if you're working full-time right now, or if you're working part-time but you're also trying to grow your business, it's a very similar situation. Your speed might be pretty low because you're working full-time 40 hours a week, so all you can really dedicate to your business is maybe 10 hours. Maybe it's Saturday and Sunday, and maybe it's a few hours after work, but you're exhausted. I can totally get that, and that one I can actually relate to because that was me when I was at my corporate job. So how do you build velocity if you're not able to get things done? Hiring someone to help you and to do it for you. And then you're actually building your business. You have this momentum, but it's not relying on you and only you. Another example of how you can build momentum and build velocity is by learning from others, hiring a coach. You still have to do the work, but the trial and error, you're not doing the trial and error. You're not out there testing and learning and reiterating and going again and again and again, trying to figure it out. You have a step-by-step plan right there that you follow. That is another way to build velocity. So when I think of velocity for me, I'll tell you my velocity with plant-based beauty. I have a virtual assistant who helps me. Right now, between my two businesses, she's helping me about 20 hours a week. That's 20 hours of things that I would otherwise be doing that she is helping me with. That's part of my velocity. I have someone who helps with writing blog content that will then go into emails, that will then be on my website, that will then be on Pinterest. That's something that I've outsourced. I have someone who helps me pack orders, make inventory, drop off inventory. That is something that helps my velocity. I just recently, for this next month, will be having someone who's doing my Instagram content. I hired an agency to help me with plant-based beauty Instagram content where I'm shipping them a ton of products and they are physically going to create the reels, post the reels, make the captions. That is velocity. But then I also just got my photos redone. A professional photographer redid all my photos instead of me having to do it for plant-based beauty, increasing my velocity. I have another small business owner named Sarah who's helping me get my products on Amazon because Amazon, number one, isn't my expertise. I don't have the time to figure it out, but I know if I get my products on Amazon, I'll get more sales. So I have a friend helping me to get my products on Amazon. That is how you take your business by storm and you grow it with this power and you actually start to see results. Not to mention, I also have coaches surrounding me, 4, 5, 6 different coaches that I work with to help me through any and all obstacles that I am trying to overcome. And I know a lot of people, when we get into the hiring discussion, they really start to freeze because they say, well, I'm not making enough money right now. But what I want to challenge you is, are you not making enough money because you're trying to do everything yourself? Do you think if you had a couple hours per week back, you would be able to make more money? Do you think if someone was able to drop off products for you once a week with those a few additional hours, you would be able to do something to make money? Do you think if someone was helping you make inventory, so instead of making inventory 3 days a week, you were able to use those 3 days to find ways to make you money? And if you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do to make money? What would I do with my time? Then that's why you need to join Product Biz Academy. Because Product Biz Academy, SE Algorithm Secrets, my programs are all about marketing and sales and how to make more money. But the key here is freeing up your time to make more money. And when you have the time to make more money, and you actually start making more money, that covers the costs of the people that you hired. That covers the costs of the coaches that you've hired. So now you're starting to see this bigger picture. You have to believe in your business. You have to take risks. You have to invest. And doing it all on your own is the quickest way to burn out, the quickest way. It's just the quickest way to break down. And that's another story where end of November last year, I actually went to the emergency room twice in 1 week because I had this unforeseen pain in my side. I thought my appendix burst. I thought my gallbladder was whatever happens to gallbladders. I thought something was going on with my liver or maybe my kidney. I went to the emergency room because I've never had such bad pain in my life. And to put this into context, I haven't taken a Tylenol in over 3 years. So I bear through pain. I don't pop a Tylenol whenever I have pain. I bear through pain and I just kind of push through it. So for this to lead me to rushing to the emergency room, my husband putting me in a car, rushing me there because I literally couldn't get in or out of bed. I couldn't move my legs because that hurt my side so much. All those muscles, how they're all intertwined. I went to the ER. Long story short, they did all sorts of checks and balances and everything looked fine. And I ended up going back to the ER a couple days later because they never gave me an answer and I thought I was dying. But they, again, reassured me with my CT scan and ultrasound and blood work that everything was fine. Finally found a naturopath doctor that was able to really work with me to understand, okay, I understand that I'm not dying, but what's the matter, right? And I found out that I have endometriosis. And endometriosis, it's when you have uterus cells that are in other places of your body. So when you're on your period, for example, and you have cramps, these other places are also going to cramp up. And what happened to me in November is I have never been so stressed and overworked as I was in 2021. After being that stressed and overworked for over a year, my body finally was like, nope, not having it. And I realize I've had endometriosis probably since I was a teenager, just from working with my doctor, but I had an extremely bad flare-up from stress. And that's why when people are hesitant to hire someone to help them, number one, it's worth it for the stress. It's worth it to live your life. It's worth it to have some free time. It's worth it to be with your kids. It's worth it to not be working all day, every day. Like, that should be part of the reasons why you want to ask for help, either through a coach or by hiring someone. But also, it's just going to make you move faster. It's that velocity. It gets you there. It gets you to the results that you want. And those results that you want will pay for the employees, will pay for the coach. And it's a beautiful full circle of life that we go through. Maybe it's a full circle of business. I don't know. It's not really a full circle of life, but you get what I'm saying by now. So that is the third thing that I want to leave you with on why you're not making progress on Etsy. You're trying to do everything on your own. And maybe this is you and maybe it's not. But for the small business owners that I've seen that are struggling, they try to do everything on their own. They only decrease their progress. They decrease their momentum. They decrease their velocity. And then they get frustrated because they're not seeing results. It's not a matter of doing everything on your own to save money. It's a matter of building velocity to get more sales. So what side of the spectrum do you want to be on? Do you want to be focused on lack and saving money and I can't do this? Or do you want to be on the side of expansion and let's make more sales and let's get people behind it. Let's hire a coach. Let's figure out how to do this. Let's get some help. Because at the end of the day, you are going to be so much more well off if you take that second option instead of trying to do everything on your own just to save a little bit of money. So with that, I want to wrap up this episode and say thank you so much for joining in and listening. And if you are feeling any resistance, if you are feeling like, yeah, that's easy for you to say, or yeah, but like my situation is different. I really just don't have the funds to hire anyone or work with a coach. What I want to leave you with is resistance is telling you exactly where you should focus first. Resistance is when your higher self knows where you should be, knows what you should be focusing on, knows what you're capable of, but there's a disconnect with where you are in reality. So that's why you feel this resistance. So lean into that resistance instead of just shutting it down and putting up this story, putting up this belief. Let's change it. Let's work on it. And let's focus on making those next steps that will really build our business. I want to remind you that as an entrepreneur, we are meant to be risk takers. We are meant to do things above and beyond that normal people don't do. That is the whole premise of running your own business. Most people don't do that. Most people sit at a 9-to-5. Most people are very comfortable with their life, but as an entrepreneur, we are meant to take risks. That's the definition of being an entrepreneur. So I encourage you to take this episode, sit down and think through what risks can you take to really build that momentum with your business and make the progress that you know you are capable of making on Etsy and with your business. And if you are interested in learning more about Etsy, I have officially launched my new training, How to Get Your Product Seen on Etsy, that you can register for. It's at monicalittlecoaching.com/Etsy webinar. And this will teach you the framework, the exact framework that I teach my Etsy Algorithm Secrets members, and they are seeing amazing results. If you've seen the testimonials on my Instagram stories, and you know these people are having an awesome time on Etsy and getting the sales that they really want, and the exposure and the visibility and the traffic, which I am sharing with you, my 3-part ACT method in this webinar that you could register for free. Join on your own time. There's a few different options every single day that you can join. So I hope you'll take the time to join on this training all about Etsy. With that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me here. I will be putting out an episode every single week. I'm saying it out loud because if you say your goals out loud, you're more likely to accomplish them. So this is me claiming it. This is me putting it out there. So I'm super excited to chat with you next week. And until then, send me a DM on Instagram if you enjoyed this episode at Monica Little Coaching. And I will see you soon. Take care. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here inside the Product Biz podcast. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe and to leave a 5-star review. And if you're interested in learning more about Product Biz Academy, my signature group coaching program for handmade small business owners like you who are looking to create consistent online sales with their business, then go to theproductbizpodcast.com to join the waitlist. Doors are currently closed, but you'll be first notified when they reopen. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Product Biz Podcast.